Manhattan Neighborhood Network, in partnership with the League of Women Voters of New York, the Amsterdam News, and Gotham Gazette, is pleased to bring you a debate among the Democratic candidates running for City Council in District 1. Hi, I'm Catherine McVeigh-Hughes. I'm a longtime resident of District 1 and have more than 25 years of service to Lower Manhattan, including being the chair and vice chair of Manhattan Community Board 1. The New York City primaries will be held on Tuesday, September 12th, for offices from mayor through the city council. The winner of the primaries, like this one in the Council District 1, will be the Democratic nominees in November's general election. The district covers Lower Manhattan, which is bounded by both the Hudson River and the East River, and includes Battery Park City, Civic Center, Chinatown, Financial District, Little Italy, the Lower East Side, NoHo, Soho, South Street Seaport, South Village, Tribeca, and Washington Square. It also includes 3 islands: Ellis Island, Liberty Island, and Governor's Island. Margaret Chin, the district's current 2-term city council representative, was invited to this debate and could not attend. We've asked the 3 candidates who are able to join us here today to keep their responses to a minute and any rebuttals they may have to 30 seconds. The candidates are seated by random drawing, and starting from my left, we have Aaron Foldenauer, Dashi Impernali, and Christopher Marte. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for being here. My first question goes to Mr. Marte. Why are you running for this office, and what is your past experience in the community?
First, I want to thank the Women League of Voters, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, for hosting this debate today. My name is Christopher Marte, and I'm running for City Council. The reason I'm running is to give an opportunity that was given to my parents and me when we came to this country, whether it's public education, after-school programs, or open space. I've been a volunteer at Elizabeth Street Garden and advocating for open space. I also developed 2 new community gardens in NYCHA residencies. I've been an activist for tenants' rights in Chinatown, and I have mobilized communities throughout Soho and Little Italy to fight against illegal construction of big box retail. I am part of this community, and I have the engagement and experience to represent the people of District 1.
Ms. Imparelli?
I'm running for City Council in District 1 because I feel that the lifelong residents of the district are being priced out. I feel that the overdevelopment and the 4218 tax abatements that they have been receiving, developers, they have recently removed the first preference for the community to have preference out of that legislation, and I'm fighting for the residents.
Mr. Foldenauer?
My name is Aaron Foldenauer. I'm a candidate for New York City Council. I've been an attorney at law firms for over a decade, and I've fought for the community by doing pro bono work for low-income artists and tenants. And I'd like to take this opportunity to respond to something that Mr. Marte just said. Mr. Marte claims that he's been involved in the community. But one thing, Mr. Marte, that I just found out about you is really disappointing. I looked up, Mr. Marte, your voting records. And what I found, Mr. Marte, and this is an official Board of Elections record, is that you failed to vote until you were 27 years old. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can register to vote in this community when you are 18 years old. Mr. Marte, you waited 9 years before you exercised even your most basic civic duty. And if I may, Mr. Marte, you're asking members of the community to come take an hour or 2 out of their day to come and vote when you, sir, have failed to even exercise that basic right, that basic duty to vote.
Mr. Marte, would you like?
I would like to rebut. My commitment and love for my community is great. I've volunteered, taking my time out nights and weekends to be a volunteer basketball coach at one of the most underfunded schools in our neighborhood. I've helped small businesses actually understand their rights to fight against landlord harassment. I have helped disenfranchised individuals who came out of prison and helped them start their own small business and gave them education, whether it's just basic confidence or financial planning. I love my district, and that's why I want to represent it. Whether it's to protect the waterfront, open space, after-school program, we need someone who's lived there, work there and is committed to be the future of our district.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Marte.
Okay, excuse me. We're going to the next question.
We'll get
We-
back to that,
Thank-
Catherine. Thank
okay.
you.
Ms. Imperali, we're going to start with you for the next round. What do you consider the most pressing needs of District 1, and what would be your first order of business if elected?
Well, my first order of business, if elected, I think we need to focus on seniors and actual creating senior housing, because the senior housing that we have right now is not affordable. And the overdevelopment that we have right now is not according to the AMI of the area. So therefore, the seniors that are in the area cannot afford to even apply for the apartments because their AMI is so minimal. It's less than $10,000 a year.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Foldenauer, same
My
question.
first order of business as a council member is to work to protect our small businesses. I have lived in the community for over a decade, and I've seen before my very eyes small businesses close. So what I would do on day one is fight for the passage of the Small Business Jobs Survival Act. And what that act would do is to give tenants a fair shake in lease negotiations with their landlords. Margaret Chin, the current council member, she failed to show up today. Margaret Chin, she claims to support the Small Business Jobs Survival Act, but she has not even fought for the Small Business Jobs Survival Act to come up for a vote. So on day one, I will not support any candidate for Speaker of City Council unless they promise to bring the Small Business Jobs Survival Act up for a vote, which Margaret Chin has failed to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marte?
I would not only support the Small Business Survival Job Act because it is a crisis in our district. My dad was a bodega owner, and he was priced out and had to close his bodega. I've also been endorsed by the writers and advocates of the Small Business Survival Job Act legislation. I've been endorsed by the Small Business Congress. However, I think the most crucial legislation that needs to be passed is campaign finance reform. Because we saw in 2013, when the Real Estate Board of New York spent almost $250,000 in re-electing our councilwoman, and we have seen the overdevelopment as a consequences of that election. And so I will fight and advocate for campaign finance reform.
Ms. Imperali?
Yes, I wanted to ask Christopher, since he's fighting for campaign finance reform, candidates are allowed to loan themselves $8,000, up to $8,000. You actually told me you took out $7,000 from your retirement fund to put it into your campaign, but it doesn't show anywhere in your filings that you actually put $7,000 in your campaign.
May I rebut?
Yes.
That's untrue. I took money from my savings to support myself to run for office. Running for office is a full-time job, and every day I wanted to knock on doors, talk to residents, and hear some of their issues and ways that we could find solution. So my commitment to the community, I did have to sacrifice from my savings, but what's going to come out of it is going to be great because we're going to have a representative that represents the people of District 1.
But don't you have to follow the law and actually make a record of the filings that you used, since you told me you gave yourself $7,000 to use in your campaign?
It was not a loan, it was from my savings.
And so where is it on the filings, in all the filings that you have done? Where is it on the filings?
It's from my checkings account, and it's money that I had in the bank.
It's not listed anywhere, Christopher.
Here's the thing, if I may respond. You know, we need full and complete transparency, and I call for a complete analysis of Mr. Marte's campaign filings to make sure that they are fair and to make sure that they are above board. And Mr. Marte, if you claim to support campaign finance reform and you claim to fight for it, that requires being willing to show up and vote for reform. And you, sir, have failed to even vote once a year in presidential elections and local elections. How, sir, can we count on you to actually show up and vote for legislation in city council when you can't even vote once a year?
I have voted in the last presidential primary and general. The presidential election before that, I was studying abroad in China for 2 years. and it was really difficult to get a ballot out there at that time.
If I may respond to that, that's why, Mr. Marte, there are absentee ballots. We have men and women fighting for this country all around the world. They actually vote. And sir, for you to now claim that you are incapable of voting when you are very capable of getting an absentee ballot, when you've lived, you claim, in this community your whole life, when in fact that's not true, it's outrageous. And we can't count on you to be our city council representative.
Or tell the truth.
Yeah, if you can't even show up and do your basic civic duty as a voter.
Or show where your $7,000 is on your filings.
I never said I took $7,000 from any fund or loan.
Your retirement fund.
I took it off my savings, and I used it to support myself because I've been running this campaign since late December.
Okay, great.
The first
Okay, so
time,
let's go to
excuse
the
me,
next
Catherine,
question,
the first
please.
time that Chris
There's a lot
Marte
more
voted
ground to cover
was to
here,
show up
please.
and vote for himself when he ran for office.
That's-
And that is totally wrong. The first year he showed up to vote was when he ran for office himself, and he ended up losing. So
Please give him a chance for a rebuttal.
That is completely untrue. I voted before I even ran for office.
Okay, so let's get on to some other questions, please. We're going to start with you, Mr. Foldenauer. Constituent services are a main function of each council member. What kind of services do you envision to be the most needed, and what will you do to effectively provide such services?
one important issue is protecting our senior citizens.
That's right.
And that is something that Margaret Chin, the incumbent, has failed to do. And you need look no further than Rivington House. Rivington House is a beautiful old school in the Lower East Side. And most recently, it was serving as a senior citizens home for people who had HIV. What Margaret Chin did in the middle of the night, she sold the Rivington House to a real estate developer for conversion into luxury condos. And now Rivington House is owned by China's largest real estate developer, and the city lost $72 million on the sale. So not even did we lose this beautiful asset belonging to the city, but also the city lost $72 million. Mr. Marte, who claims to be involved in the community, lives right down the street from Rivington House. He claims to be involved in the community, and he did nothing to stop the sale of Rivington House. So Mr. Marte is just an example of another failed community activist, and Margaret Chin is a failed incumbent.
I completely disagree. I actually showed up. I am the only candidate that showed up to the open house that the Rivington, to the Neighbors to Save the Rivington House actually had, where we discussed some of the issues, some of the platform, and we had individuals who used the senior facility and the AIDS hospice showed up to actually talk about their experience. I did grow up across the street from the Rivington House, and so this issue is personal. I knew the janitors, I knew the nurses, I knew the people who were serviced there. And so when I'm running for office, I'm not running for political reasons. I'm running because we lost a community establishment, and it really diminished what life is now.
Okay.
Mr. Marte, I may respond to that. Mr. Marte, you claim you showed up. That's after Rivington House was sold. And in fact, you just admitted you were in China during the whole Rivington House debacle. And so you weren't even there, sir, to do anything about Rivington House. You claim to be involved in the community, but yet you weren't there. You were traveling all around around the world. And in fact, on Twitter, you admit that you are a world traveler. What city council needs is someone who actually lives in this community. Daisha has lived in this community for nearly 20 years. I've lived in this community for the last 12 years straight. Mr. Marte, you have not been in the community for the last decade because you've been traveling all around the world and you did not do anything to fight Rivington House.
I would like to just point out, I've been living here since 1966 in the Lower East Side. And I've been a housing activist for over 15 years, and I've actually saved people's homes, and I fought the biggest real estate developer in the world, which is the Archdiocese. I've actually saved 600 families' homes, and I fought for 40 years of rental affordability restrictions in my building, and I have also helped tenants Uptown,
Okay,
downtown,
so
everywhere.
Great. So we're getting back here. We need the questions to be answered. So constituent services, Mr. Marte, are the main function of each council member. What kind of services do you envision to be the most needed, and what will you do to effectively provide such services?
I think is having actually a platform for people to voice their concerns. Not having a town hall meeting in 8 years. City and state recently just put out a ranking on who has the best and least constituent services in their district. Our councilwoman came in dead last. We need someone that's going to actually knock on doors, talk to residents. I've been endorsed by the Downtown Independent Democrats, Village Independent Democrats, and Village Reform Democrats. Many of those members are community activists and leaders who have trusted in me to be their voice. So I will have an office that speaks every language, and I will have an office that understands the diversity of our district. Yes, I went around the world, but I think that will only help me to communicate to families in Chinatown, families in the West Village, and the Lower East Side.
How
Great.
many,
And Ms.
how many homes have you actually saved? How many people's homes have you actually saved?
I've actually helped individuals.
So how many homes have you saved?
Well, I haven't been in a position to save homes, but I've been an advocate. For past 2 years,
So
I've been
you
working.
haven't saved anybody's homes.
I've been working
So
with.
how are you a housing activist if you haven't saved anybody's home?
Because I've taken to the streets before they built the Extel Tower.
No.
I was with neighbors rallying.
But you're claiming you're a housing activist
Okay.
and you haven't saved anybody's
Okay, so
home.
excuse me, we're going to go to the lightning round so we know where you stand on some issues. So please answer yes or no, or one sentence answers, please. Do you support congestion pricing, Mr. Marte?
Yes.
Ms. Imparelli?
Yes.
We have to do a lot to reform our traffic laws, and yes,
So
I
yes
do
or no?
Yes, I do support
Okay.
congestion pricing, and there's a lot that needs to be done to fix our roadways here in New York City.
Thank you. Our next lightning round question is, in 2016, more than 127,000 homeless men and women and children slept in New York City's shelter system. This includes over 45,000 children. Where do you stand on the addition of homeless shelters in District 1? Ms. Imparelli, yes or no?
I think people need homes, not homeless shelters.
What we need to do is give homeless the help that they need. So the problem we have in Manhattan...
Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no question, Catherine. If you
long
read back the
answer.
question, it's not a yes or no question.
Okay.
So what we need to do is give the people the help they need. Incumbents like Margaret Chin, what they're doing is that they're shuttling homeless people in and out of ERs without giving them the help that we need. I would also convert some of our homeless shelters into comfort centers so that we can use our existing physical plant to support even more people who are homeless and in need.
Okay.
That way we can get more bang for our buck.
And Mr. Marte?
I will. So yes to the question. And I actually have a track record of helping people who've been disenfranchised from our community. I help formerly incarcerated individuals start their own small business so they could afford housing, they could help their communities and their families.
Thank you. Our next lightning round
Marte,
question.
you haven't even
excuse
been
me?
here in the neighborhood for the last 10 years straight. So you can't claim to actually have helped people when you actually haven't done so.
Would you like a
I did
rebuttal?
study abroad. I had an amazing opportunity to go study in China, London, and Latin America. And when my parents came to this country, they came for those type of opportunities. And I took advantage about them, and they gave me opportunities to have a professional career.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Marte,
Our
the
next
other
lightning
two of
round
us, the other
question.
two of us
Lightning
have
round
actually
question.
fought for the community for over the last 10 years straight. And that's what this community needs, someone who's actually going to be here on the ground every day and fight for the community.
Okay, now on to schools. As our district population continues to grow, how do you plan to alleviate school overcrowding in the schools? Mr. Fortnow?
My parents are elementary school teachers, so education is an issue I know a lot about. In fact, my parents, in addition to being school teachers, I helped them grade papers and help with their bulletin boards over the years. And unfortunately, our career politicians like Margaret Chin have left us with a dire school shortage in Lower Manhattan. We are short over 700 school seats here, and that's a basic planning failure. More people are moving to Lower Manhattan, and Margaret Chin and others have failed to build additional schools. In addition, college readiness. Only 37% of our high school graduates in New York City are actually prepared for college. So what we need to do is actually empower our teachers and reduce the over focus we have right now on standardized tests and actually teach students how to think and actually prepare students for college.
Okay, Mr. Marte?
Having one of the fastest growing districts, whether it's in financial district or in the Lower East Side, with the addition of Essex Street Crossing and the potential development on the waterfront, we need to get the schools that were promised to us. We were promised a school by NYU, it still hasn't been built. We were promised the school at Essex Street Crossing, and that hasn't been built. We gotta make sure that we have a representative that's gonna stand up to these developers and say, we need what was promised to our community. I used to be a volunteer basketball coach at MS 131, one of the most underfunded schools in our district. And I had to take my nights and weekends to give these individuals, these kids, an opportunity. We need our city council person to fund these opportunities, and I would do that day one.
Ms. Imparelli?
Well, in the NYU expansion plan, Margaret Chin had a chance to put a school there, and she did not. She changed that area from, I believe it was residential to commercial. My point being, even in Essex Crossing, there's 1,000 seats for a school and a plot of land, but DOE takes about 5 years to project the money that they need for that. And I think that's too long of a period to wait to do projections. If you can give a tax abatement to a developer in a couple of months, you can give money for schools. I would also mandate that developers give back to the community in perpetuity a percentage on an annual basis to fund schools.
Okay,
Because
great.
we need more schools. There's going to be like 30,000 families moving in our district. In order to have your child going to school now, it's like getting into Yale or Harvard.
Now, one more question on schools. Some parents in New York City School District 1, which includes the East Village, part of Chinatown, and the Lower East Side, have proposed a system known as controlled choice in order to better integrate its schools so that every elementary school better reflects the economic diversity of the district as a whole. Where do you stand on this issue, Mr. Marte?
I support that. I support the proposal created by the Council Education District 1 and a lot of the staff members in the schools and parents, because we need to have diverse schools. So it gives our children an opportunity to learn about different cultures. It was living next to Chinatown that gave me the courage and the curiosity to actually go live in China. We need to give that opportunity to school kids today.
Ms.
I
Imparelli?
agree, controlled choice is important. Our schools need to reflect our community. I mean, it's a melting pot. New York is the greatest city in the world, and we need to be inclusive. We need to have classrooms that reflect our community.
Mr. Fortnow?
We need to do everything we can to make sure that we have more diverse schools. I was lucky to go to the public school system growing up, and I was also lucky to attend diverse schools. And I think it benefits everyone to have as much diversity as possible in our schools so that people in our diverse historic neighborhoods in Lower Manhattan actually get to go to a local school and also get to know each other in the community. A big problem we have right now in Lower Manhattan is that a lot of children aren't able to go to their local schools because of overcrowding. So school reform, our school system needs a top to bottom review in Lower Manhattan to make sure that they're more diverse and so that people can attend their local schools.
Okay, moving on to housing. 90% of tenants in housing court have no legal representation, putting them at a disadvantage when facing eviction or against landlords and their attorneys in court. What steps will you take to alleviate this problem, Ms. Imparelli?
I would advocate for the right to counsel. Alan Gerson actually made up that legislation, and I would fight to actually push that through because tenants have a right to counsel, not just in a criminal, not if you commit a crime. It shouldn't be that if it has to be you have to have committed a crime to have counsel. If you are getting evicted and you are somebody that has no money, you should have a right to counsel.
Mr. Fortnow?
Yeah, we need to do everything we can to protect our local tenants. The big problem in Manhattan now is affordability. everything's gotten more expensive. And one driver for this problem that very few politicians are talking about is the rise of non-resident ownership. You have a lot of foreign ownership of condo units in Manhattan. And you even have a lot of dot-commers from California and elsewhere who are buying property as an investment. So what happens is that takes away housing stock from people like you and me who actually live here, work here, and pay taxes. So as we build more housing units, we need to make sure that they are actually used by residents who live here and work here so that we don't let housing stock go to waste. I am a lawyer, and I am proud to have fought for tenants in the community, and I look forward to continuing to do so as your next City Council representative.
Mr. Marte?
I think all tenants should have a right to counsel. But how can we act on it immediately? I believe is identifying a legal conversion of affordable units to market rate units. You know, there's thousands of them throughout the city and hundreds of them in our district. And we need a city council person that's going to identify them, put them on a database, and take the landlords to court to make sure that apartments that were meant to be affordable remain affordable.
Okay, next question. Affordable housing is a shrinking commodity in Manhattan. Yes or no? Is New York City affordable housing plan working? And what is the number one thing you would do as a city council member to continue to expand the number of affordable units available in your district? Mr. Marte?
I don't believe in the plan that we currently have because it's truly not affordable. I was actually talking to a resident, Maria, who lives in the Two Bridges area, and she says she's 60 years old and she can't stand the construction that's happening in her neighborhood, so she applied to Exit Street Crossing. She realized that by being 60 years old, she didn't qualify for the senior units. And she realized that she has a better chance at winning the lottery than actually winning a unit at Exit Street Crossing. And so it's really concerning when you have someone who built this community, who's been fighting to stay in their community, don't have an opportunity to remain in their neighborhood because they can't afford it. When you have residents who can't afford affordable units, I think that's one of the biggest concerns.
Ms. Imperali?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns in housing is the fact that they're building housing according to an AMI that's not the AMI of the actual district. I would support district AMIs, but they would have to have a low and a high, because right now they're going by the AMI of upstate New York. And most New Yorkers do not make $60,000 a year. That is not low income. But according to New York State, that is low income, $60,000 a year. And where it stands right now, the housing that's being built next to affordable units will eventually price these existing people out. Those are seniors, single family moms, people in the service industry, people in the entertainment industry. I mean, when you put buildings that are higher income near low income areas, you're gonna have primary, secondary, and involuntary displacement. And that's gonna cause like a domino effect. There's going to be homelessness, there's going to be crimes. We have to really sit down and realize that we need to protect the affordable housing that we have currently and build affordable housing that is actually affordable to New Yorkers, and update the 421A, because the 421A, they took out the first preference for New Yorkers. We no longer have first preference.
Okay. Mr. Fortnow?
Overdevelopment is a big issue, and we're also building the wrong types of buildings. We need to build more affordable housing, and it's all about having the right incentives. Currently, the wrong incentives are in place. There are strong incentives for foreigners and non-residents to actually buy up property. And when they buy these housing units, they don't pay federal taxes, they don't pay state income taxes, and they don't pay New York City taxes. So what happens is they don't even contribute to the local tax base that pays for the police, that pays for the parks, and that pays for the fire department. So not only are we losing housing stock for our local residents, but also we're driving up prices, we're driving up rents, and we're reducing our tax base. So we need to have the right incentives in place. And unfortunately, Margaret Chin has sold out to the real estate developers. And it's a shame that she's not here today at this debate to defend her record. And I think I know why Margaret Chin's not here, and that's because she cannot defend her record.
Okay, next question. Ms. Imperali, we'll start with you. How would you address the issue of rent destabilization?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a major issue, because anytime you try to protect anything, the Real Estate Board of New York is right there lobbying to, to jack up rents. So the Real Estate Board of New York is running the city. Our politicians are corrupt, okay? They're in bed with the Real Estate Board of New York. So there's no chance for the actual tenants, no matter how many times they rally or no matter what they say, to protect anything, because the Real Estate Board of New York is in control of everything. They're calling new buildings minor site modifications. New buildings are not minor site modifications. That's how they're getting away with building new buildings and claiming they're affordable. Is a new building a minor site modification? Is a new building a minor site modification?
Under Margaret Chin's failed view of the law, it is. And of course, it shouldn't be. May I respond to the question?
Yes. How do you address the issue of rent destabilization, Mr. Fortnow?
Well, the first issue is that a lot of residents do not have the right to counsel. Lawyers are very expensive. And so what happens is that these residents are threatened by their landlords, and then they don't know what to do. They can't adequately defend themselves in court. City Council has taken some steps to help alleviate this problem. But I have actually fought for residents. I fought, for example, for a nonprofit that was being threatened by its landlord, and secured that nonprofit the ability to stay in its unit. And that's what I will continue to do as your next city councilman, to actually fight for people to stay in their apartments and also reduce the number of buyouts, because unfortunately you have more and more apartments being destabilized because of buyouts, because of phony lawsuits, and we must put that to an end.
Okay. We're going to start with you for the next question, Mr. Fortnow. How do you plan to protect tenants from being ousted from their home by extreme or aggressive measures by landlords like construction as harassment?
Well, that's why my experience as an attorney comes in. As a city council member, there are 50 other council members to deal with, because there are 51 members on New York City Council. So in order to get anything done, you as a council member actually have to negotiate with the other council members. You have to navigate court decisions and navigate the law to figure out how to close the loopholes that allow wealthy landlords and that allow real estate developers to exploit low-income and moderate-income households from leaving their homes. So what I'm going to do is work on closing the loopholes. The real estate developers know the loopholes. The wealthy landlords know the loopholes. And it's about time that the people elect a city council member like me, who actually knows the loopholes and actually can close them so that people can keep their homes.
Okay, Mr. Marte?
I agree. It's not only closing the loopholes, but it's also giving these individuals education or translation to understand their rights as tenants. They should have the right to counsel, but they should also understand their rights, and they should be able to express it. I would be that city council person because I do speak Spanish, speak some Mandarin, and I lived in the community, so I know the people who are being harassed. For the past 2 years, I've been rallying with residents of 8385 Bowery who are under tenant harassment from their landlord. They have looked to me to come and speak out for them. And I will continue that movement as a city council person because I've stood with residents for multiple years.
They've looked to all of us.
Ms. Imperali?
8385 has looked to all of us to speak out on behalf of them in rallies and what have you, because we are all we are all worried about the affordable housing stock on the Lower East Side, especially the waterfront, where the LSRD has expired. They want to build these mega towers that Margaret Chin is only now fighting after 8 years. She's fighting 2 weeks before election. It's a political sham. The URA expired in 2009. The LSRD expired in 2007. Special permits were requested in 2010. She could have fought in 2010 to stop these mega towers that are going up from contextually destroying the fabric of our community. We need to protect our community because we live in a historic community. The reason why New York is so popular and New Yorkers love to live here, it's a diverse economic, it's diverse. Economically, it's diverse. It's a melting pot. That's why people come over here. We have a historic area to protect. And developers want to build everywhere by calling new buildings minor site modifications, by receiving public land. This is a real estate Ponzi scheme that's going on right now, bundling up non-for-profits with Fannie Mae. There's going to be another housing crisis if we don't get the rein on what's going on. You need a city council member that will I will wrap it up, but we need a city council member that will fight for the constituents of this district and not be in donor service and be in public service.
Okay, on that, we're doing the final round, your closing statements. We're now, so each candidate can have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr. Foldenauer.
It is unfortunate that Margaret Chin did not show up to this debate today, which has been scheduled weeks in advance. Margaret Chin could not show up to defend her record. And it's also disappointing, as you heard at the top of the hour, that Mr. Marte has never voted in his life until 1 year ago when he himself ran for office. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, that you actually vote for someone who has fought for the community and who has lived in the community. My name is Aaron Foldenauer, and I hope to earn your vote this fall.
Mr. Marte?
Hi, my name is Christopher Marte, and thank you for listening to our debate today. I'm running because we haven't had any community engagement on the city council level. We haven't had a town hall meeting in 8 years. And so when we look at issues throughout our neighborhood, whether it's sanitation, overdevelopment, or preserving our neighborhood open spaces and historic district, we're not given a voice to even talk. As a city council person, I would give you that voice. I've been knocking on doors every single day since December and hearing about the issues, but we need to find a solution. Whether it's having participatory budgeting, which allows residents to have a say on how our budget is used, or actually listening to you so we could have policy that represents the community in general. I would be your city council person, and on September 12th, I ask for your vote.
Hi, my name is Daisha Imperiali. I am running for city council to protect the community that I love. I am running because I am a lifelong artist. I am a housing activist. I am the only candidate up here that has actually saved people's homes. I have saved 600 families' homes. I negotiated 40 years of affordability. I am running because I am fed up because the political system is broken. It's corrupt. It's filled with nepotism and cronyism. I want to protect our historic district. I want to be your voice in these tumultuous times because I am not a politician. I am just like you. So if you vote for me September 12th, what you will get is integrity, honesty, and the truth. And that's why I am running for city council, because I want to be your voice. I want to support small businesses. I want to pass the Small Business Job and Survival Act. I want to pass the Chinatown Working Group Plan in its entirety. And I want to stop the privatization of NYCHA and actually focus on repairs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our candidates for participating in today's debate. The primary elections will be held on Tuesday, September 12th. For more information about voting, locating your poll site, and the candidates, you can visit the League of Women Voters website, lwvnyc.org. Please remember, only voters enrolled in a political party having a primary may vote in a primary election. Thank you for watching Race to Represent on Manhattan Neighborhood Network.